Hello, and welcome to the Elevate Entrepreneur, where we decode the success of some of the greatest entrepreneurs that I've met, that I know, that I trust. These individuals have not only built their business up, but they've also impacted lives for the better. Here you will learn not only how to grow your business, but also inspire you to want to be just a little bit better. I'm your host, Raylan Davis. My entire intention is to remove obstacles and excuses as to why people can't realize they deserve more. With that being said, let's jump into this week's episode. Stay motivated, stay elevated. You had this moment where you're like, all right, irreplaceable man, this is the fucking mission.
Yeah.
And not to mention too, you cut out half your team, which, by the way, we can talk about this a little bit too, because your boy did something similar recently.
Nice.
Okay. Because I think it's important to talk about. Yep. No one talks about this shit a lot. But anyway, so you go, irreplaceable man, this is the journey. And you start out, this was like January still. So by the way, can we talk about, I want to
This is 3 weeks ago.
I'm going to give you some flowers, because for those that are just listening to this, you got an Irreplaceable Man t-shirt on right now. Like, your ability to execute is like ridiculous. 3 weeks, you turn everything around for branding. Guys, if you don't know, turning around branding is fucking hard.
Yeah.
And you did it in 3 weeks. So anyway, pick up from there.
I mean, dude, what we're talking about here as an elevated entrepreneur is the ability to check your shit at the door, your ego, and say, this isn't working. I got to make some changes, and I got to trust myself that these changes are what needs to happen. And so, look, I didn't trust myself back in August when I branded Irreplaceable Man. Like, I told you, I got the trademark, I got the .com. I own irreplaceableman.com. And I wasn't courageous enough to move from Men on Purpose at that point, because I thought, well, Men on Purpose is the vehicle. I'm creating irreplaceable men. That's what Men on Purpose does. And that was the 95% piece, where the 5% was actually more important than the 95, because the message wasn't hitting. And it was like, it's like if you were standing 100 yards from a shotgun, like, you're scared as shit that someone's going to fire a shotgun at you. However, it's not going to hit you. And even if it does, it's going to be so light that the power of the shotgun and the power that it had at the muzzle and the power that it has when it hits you is completely different. And that's what was happening. And so, yeah, dude, I don't really do slow, except I did slow on this one until I got enough evidence, which was August to January. And I spent a shit ton of money working on building Men on Purpose and this brand. And then when I made that determination, I'm telling you, those guys saved my life. No joke. Huge props to Keith Yackey, Mark Santiago, a bunch of the guys down at Keith's Ascend Brotherhood Mastermind. Like, those guys saved my life. I did not have the clarity to pivot. And when they gave me and helped me with that, and by the way, I was there for just as a guest. This wasn't a paid, this is a guest. I was just there as a guest. Yeah. They gave me information that's worth $50 million plus. And help me. And that's not what the mastermind's about, by the way. And so once we made the determination that Saturday morning, and I called my guys in the UK and I said, hey, here's where we are. Here's what we do. Here's who we help. And here's who they become, because that's who I became.
Here's what I like about it, right? I love that there's a dream outcome. Men on Purpose, like, I just assumed it was finding your purpose, right? Like, that's the dream outcome, finding your purpose, which I think ideologically I'd like more than Irreplaceable Man. Here, I want you to coach me up a little bit here.
Sure.
Here's my issue with Irreplaceable Man, is that the dream outcome is based around a female. It's based around an individual that's outside of yourself.
Yeah.
And so it's like, B is so irreplaceable that my wife won't leave, where it's like, I feel like the mission should be, and this is where I need the coaching, right? The mission should be so damn good that you love yourself. Like, you feel good about you. And that's why I like Men on Purpose. So walk me through, like, how I can think about this a little bit differently, or maybe I'm not in the right ballpark here. Or, the simple, like, marketing situation where it's like, hey, this is what you think you want, but here's the truth. Here's the broccoli. Here's what you actually need is okay.
Yeah, that's what it is. Inside of the really, like, think about it. Ritz crackers are shit. However, they're the best-selling brand because their packaging is amazing. You see that red box and that fluffy, buttery cracker from wherever. Now, if I were going to do a a broccoli and kale cracker. I'm not going to put it in a box that looks like it came out of North Korea or Russia, right? Nobody's going to buy that shit. And you could have the best Ritz cracker in a North Korean looking stale, very, very hospital operating room looking cold box. Nobody's going to buy that shit, even if you have the best product inside. And that's what I was doing is I have an incredible fucking product. I have an incredible mastermind. Our curriculum is amazing. Who I was, that's in like the most alignment possible was the only thing I was thinking about was how do I become the man that my wife will never want to leave? From that concept, I became the man that's an incredible father, an incredible leader. I learned to love myself. I found my purpose. I found my mission. All of that came from the concept of if my wife leaves, I will have failed at this thing that I made a commitment to, and I haven't even tried. I haven't even put 10% into it. So it's a concept that's about the man's growth. And yes, marketing.
The catalyst.
Yeah.
Catalyst,
it's the Kickstarter,
right?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a junk.
Because that's the only thing. When you told me Irreplaceable Man, I was like, I don't fucking know about this, dude. Like, because the only thing is like, and again, considering what you just said, right? Like, that's just the thing that makes you want to be better. Right. That's not the end all be all. Like, I think part of the problem that I see with a lot of people is like, it's not Irreplaceable Man. I'm seeing a lot of like, high value men be a high value man. So the only thing inherently I don't like about those concepts though is it starts with the premise that you need to be better for someone else.
Yeah.
Versus like this inner journey of like, yo, let's find your shit and be better for you. And as a result, because like for me anyway, like with my wife, by the way, since the last time we talked, I got married.
Nice, dude. Congrats.
But my journey with her was that I took a year off from dating and I found me, right? I went to therapy and I remember this therapist goes, I want you to date yourself for a year. I was like, what the fuck does that even mean? What do you date myself, right? And so, but because of that year journey, I became a better person. And then that allowed me to find my wife. Because if the thing I always say is, I would have found my wife 5-10 years ago, I would have fucked it up.
Yeah.
There's 0% chance it would have worked out because I would have screwed it up. But because I focused on me, and then even in a relationship now, her and I like are very much on parallel lines. We're not on the same journey though. We're on parallel lines and we both push, and that's why it works. And so anyway, my only trepidation with Irreplaceable Man, and this is why I wanted you to explain it to me a little bit better, was the idea of trying to improve yourself for someone else doesn't sound right.
Think about this though. There's two things at play. One is the one thing that could derail, besides money, the biggest thing that could derail a man from his actual mission and purpose, getting traction in life the way he designed to, right? That he's capable of. I don't care how much money you're making. If your wife fucking hates you, if you hate you as a husband, if your home life sucks, your life sucks, right? So there's that catalyst that we know 80% of the men of the world are struggling through that. Plus, nobody is going to pick up a marketing line or click on an ad that says, become the irreplaceable man that you'll love forever, or that you'll want to be with, or that you'll never want to run from, or that you'll never want to drink again to escape from the inner demons that you're facing. Nobody's going to click on that shit. So we took the two, and trust me, dude, Keith and the guys, we all talked about this. It really came down to the reason why I started building myself to become this man that was irreplaceable for the world, find my mission, learn to love myself, be connected to me, my authentic me, was because the catalyst was not the reason I did it. The catalyst was my wife was going to leave if I didn't become the real authentic version of me. That's one aspect. My business was doing amazing. My employees hated me. I was fake as fuck in the world. I was only focused on money, power, success, external validation. My wife saying, I'm going to leave if you can't be the real you, the you that I know. And she kickstarted the Ian journey to becoming truly irreplaceable. The marketing piece is, I honestly started this journey because I didn't want my wife to leave.
Yeah.
And this journey opened up into this incredible thing. And I think that that challenge is what a lot of guys are going through right now, and that will attract them in. And if you look at our stuff, none of our stuff has to do with improving your marriage. None of it. It's all about you. But I can't package it like, so Men on Purpose didn't work at the level that I knew it could, or I thought it could, because it was packaged as, hey man, end all your internal struggles. Hey man, learn how to manage your emotions. Hey man, you want to become a better moral purpose? Hey, you want to find your purpose and mission in life? Guys are like, yeah, but what do I do with that? And now it's like, become this man that you're meant to be, that like is authentic, that your wife actually wants to be with, that your kids actually want to hang out with, that your employees want to confide in and like work for. That's who the irreplaceable man is.
Well, what you're doing is you're meeting people where they are.
Yeah.
Like, instead of going like, hey, you need to find your purpose. Fuck it. That sounds great. But also
Right.
like, it sounds like
Too big.
it's big. And there's a certain kind of person that it wants to take that journey. And usually they've already hit rock bottom.
Yeah.
Like, you know, if you're an addict, you usually don't seek counsel until you hit rock bottom.
Yeah.
And most people that want to find their purpose, they're at bottom. But what I like about the irreplaceable man idea is, again, like, who doesn't want to be like, fuck even being like in your marriage. I want to be so good at my 9 to 5 that motherfuckers can't replace me.
Yeah.
I want to
That's
be
what
so
it's about
good.
too.
Yeah. Like, I want to be so good as an entrepreneur. My clients don't want to leave and go somewhere else. Like, there's so many cool components to that, and that gets you in. And then you discover, working with someone like you, like, oh, how that actually executes.
Well, dude, here's the thing that scared me back in 2016 when my wife wanted to leave, which she, by the way, she didn't want to leave. I was such a disconnected dipshit that I was not the man she wanted to be with every day, because I was bringing the scraps home. I was giving everybody out here everything to make the money, to be important, to have value, to be the provider. And when I got home, I was tired, and I wasn't putting any effort into our marriage, into our partnership. She wasn't heard or seen or valued or safe. She was none of those things. But I was like, but I'm providing. What else do you want? I bought you a Louis Vuitton bag. We took a $10,000 vacation. You got a new car. Like, what else do you want? And the answer was, everything, motherfucker, everything from you. I want everything from you. The money doesn't matter to me. All this matters to me, and all you focus on is the money. We are not seeing eye to eye. And that is a massive problem that most high-level guys are dealing with. And so at that point, when I realized that I could be replaced by another dude, and it wasn't going to be a guy like me. It was going to be a guy that like probably has a safe 9 to 5 and has a pension or a 401k and like believes in college is the only way. Like, a guy that I don't want raising my kids, by the way, scared the shit out of me.
Yeah.
And, you know, a guy that's like helping my 13-year-old write a resume. Like, I don't want that. I don't want that. I don't want that. So that scared me. And then honestly, I went into my brokerage the next day, my real estate brokerage, and I said to my broker, because I got coaching around this the night before, I was really emotional about it. And I said to him, hey, I got a really weird question. What happens if I die tomorrow? And he's like, what? I wanted to know what would happen. I wanted to know if I was really replaceable as a real estate agent, because I think as professionals, we want to believe that, or our ego at least wants to believe that we're the only ones that can do our job. And the fact of the matter is, I'm going to guess that probably 90% of people are replaceable in their job that they think they're so important in. And the problem that I was hitting, and the realization that I was having, was that this thing that created my identity, I could get replaced instantly. And then where am I? I'm without a wife. I'm seeing my kids 50% of the time. 50% of my money's gone. And like, my whole life is empty. And really, like, all the stuff that I made meaning of was fake. And so he said to me, you okay? And I said, yeah, I'm fine, man. I just want to know, how many transactions you have? 15. Okay. You have 15 open transactions. You die tomorrow. Well, we'll take them over and we'll give them to another agent. And then once they close, Meredith will get a check, and, you know, we'll get another agent to work your database, and they'll cut Meredith checks until that kind of runs out. And then, you know, Meredith will have to figure it out. And I said, but what about me? What about the unique way that I sell real estate? What about the way that I negotiate What about my sales skills? What about my marketing skills? And the guy goes, what about them? And I said, what about me? What about the human? What about me? What about the individual? And he said, well, somebody else will take over. Is that what you're worried about? And he just didn't get it. And I said, no, dude, I think I got my answer. And I realized at that moment, there's nothing special about me in real estate. And that money was filling a fake void that I was running out of time on. It was not going to fill forever. And then I needed to find who I really was, the real, irreplaceable, authentic version of me that could save my marriage and become somebody that the world needed. And that's where the coaching was born. And that's where the Irreplaceable Man technically was born. Was I used the wife thing, my marriage thing, as a catalyst to create and understand, basically reveal the authentic me and become irreplaceable in all these different categories. Like, dude, you could wear this shirt and you would fill it out a lot better than I do because you're way more jacked than I am. You're not me. You know what I mean? You and I are really powerful coaches. You're not me. You don't have my DNA. You don't have my flavor. You don't have my essence. It could never be from you. And I guarantee you could lead Irreplaceable Man and make massive impact, yet you're not me. And so I wanted to figure out how to clear all the bullshit that was affecting me, right? The traumas, the conditions, the programming, the voices in my head, all that stuff. I wanted to get rid of it, right? Eliminate all the restrictions and constraints that I had been putting on myself or allowing to stay, to become this irreplaceable version of me, the most authentic version of me that no one could fucking touch, that could actually make impact on the world that nobody else could make except for me. And that's where we are today.
Yeah, again, I think that's such an interesting way of looking at it in terms of just like, again, how do I be irreplaceable? It's funny because, again, we're saying this, we're two sides of the different coin, and that I don't look at myself as being, it's my impression that everyone's replaceable. There's a moment with my team I remember once, and I think they misunderstood me. Some of them got it, but I said, look, all of you are replaceable, including me. I'm the founder.
Yeah.
Everyone here is replaceable. And the reason why people are replaceable or easy to replace is because you never push the envelope, right? You know, my creative director, for example, if he's not looking constantly at different YouTube videos, if he's not constantly engrossed in different content, eventually he'll run out of shit to push the envelope, and I'm going to replace him, right? Yeah. He's like arguably one of my best friends right now, and I would replace him. So the way that I look at it, that's a slightly different. I'm curious. I think they're still connected. Is that I started the last year or so looking at myself like a vessel for information, right? Like there's ideas floating above me at all times, and you have that moment that you get an idea, right? For you, it's Irreplaceable Man. The Irreplaceable Man would have came to fruition if you didn't do it. Right? You ever have an idea and then like 5 years later something fucking does, and you're like, fuck, what? How did this happen? Well, it happened because it needed to come. Now, here's the thing. It needed to come into fruition. It needed to come to this universe. It needed to be seen by other people. And you have a small window to take advantage of it because it needs to come. It needs to be seen. And if you don't do it, somebody else will. Now, here's the thing, though. There's this great quote that I've been talking constantly about from the Surrender Experiment by Michael Singer. And essentially he says, right, act as though the tasks that were given to you were uniquely designed for you from the universe, because it was. And so I think there's this interesting kind of duality here, this dichotomy where you are uniquely positioned to bring that idea to fruition. Irreplaceable Man had to come, and it had to impact the people it was going to impact, and it's going to impact, and it had to be done by you. However, if you didn't do it, the idea would have found somebody else.
Thing is, though, I did do it. So there's no other, like, if you think about it, if that sentence is true, which I love Michael Singer, if that sentence is accurate, which it is, when my coach said to me back in August and got the emotion up, right, which is where I know the gut is aligned, I wanted to become irreplaceable in my marriage, and I wanted to become irreplaceable as a leader. And he said, that's it. Now go figure out if someone else has that. And what that was the universe going, Ian, go this way. And it was like, I talked to my attorney. He's like, bro, the .com and the trademark and the entire Google search is wide open for you. And I was like, great. So like, we can speculate all day long, and it wasn't that because it was this. You know what I mean? Like, that's the duality. It wasn't that because it was this. At this time, this guy it was opened up to me. Now, here's the part that I think you and I can have go deeper on is, how did I become the man that could trust myself to be able to take advantage of when the universe or God puts things in your path, to be able to take advantage or see that they are the next serving, or that it's right for you, or whatever you want to say. I think that's the challenge that most people have, is that they're waiting for signs, and the signs are all around them. They're just so blinded to anything else over here because they're so stuck in their internal dialogue from their past programming that they cannot, will not, are unable to see something right in front of their face.
Well, like for you, for example, in order for this to happen, Men on Purpose had to fail.
Yeah.
Like,
and it was a lot of identity wrapped up in that too, dude.
Because, by the way, if it was crushing, I mean, like,
nothing would have happened. No,
dude, you would have did like, because I had a similar experience with our workshop. Like, we put on our first workshop, and I lost probably 15 grand doing that workshop, and we had to rethink everything. Like, to the point of like, what does our lead gen look like? What do we is this basic question of like, is the Elevated Coaches Academy a coaching program, or is it a community? Like, these basic questions that I didn't want to answer, because if everything was working, like we were doing really, really well, idea to money, we were crushing. And then even with our agency, like everything was going really well. And then in literally 2-week period, I lose 15 grand in the workshop. And then because of the new year and everything going on, I wanted to change the way we were doing content marketing, but we were making money. So I was like, I'm not going to do it. And then all of a sudden I lost half our clients. Yeah. So I lost 15 grand in a workshop, and then I lost 15 grand in MMR. So in 2 weeks, I lost like damn near like 30 grand, like overnight. But because of that though, and I remember, telling my wife and telling our team, like, this is the best opportunity ever, because I didn't like what we were doing. We were doing all short form shit. Ian, everyone and their mom has a short form content. Like, and by the way, short form content is dog shit. Like, I didn't like doing it at all. It was boring to me. Yeah, I didn't want to do it. I wanted to get into long form, YouTube and podcasting and setting people up that way. But I had to fail in order to make that transition. If I would have kept making money doing the short form, I probably would have been still doing it and hating my life.
But you would have failed a lot bigger. My wife and I talked about that Friday. It's interesting because I think the Friday, whatever it was, January, this is a really appropriate conversation. Like the Friday, January 27th, I feel like a part of my life ended. The Men on Purpose piece was so much a part of my life. And I thought, man, this is my mission. This is my thing. I'm wearing the shirt every day. I'm like, right. And it was not aligning. And so that Friday, I honestly was like ready to throw my computer through the window. Like, I was ready to burn this fucker down. No joke. That's what was happening inside of me. The failure hit my ego so hard that I was ready to check out, man. I'm telling you, I was going to go drive up to Seattle. It's from LA to see my buddy Alex, and just on my way back down, just contemplate what my life was about. And if I do need to write a resume, or, maybe I could call some guys that I was contemplating total failure, because that's what it felt like to me. And my wife said to me, after I got home from this, like, then the next morning I'm down in Orange County with Keith in this mastermind, which that's why I'm telling you, it saved my life. Like, I think I would have made a dumb decision. But here's the thing, like you're talking about, that's not what was in the store. The universe was like, hey, bro, I'm going to end this thing. I'm going to give you the answer in exactly 12 hours. You're going to be so clear that you're not even going to know what to do with yourself. And so I'm driving home on Sunday afternoon after this mastermind with this insane amount of clarity. And I said to my team, go. It's Irreplaceable Man here out. I'll get the logos made by Wednesday. I'll get the shirts ordered, which, by the way, I ordered $1,000 worth of Men on Purpose shirts that came Friday when all this shit just went down. And luckily, the colors were all fucked up. And so I called Custom Ink and I go, hey, the colors are all fucked up. And they were like, no problem, we'll reprint them right now. I said, wait. Would you reprint a different logo? My team doesn't like the logo. And they said, not a problem. We want you to be happy. So that's how these came so fast, because the universe just lined that shit up. No, just like Michael Singer says in The Untethered Soul, it's not your job to change the course of your life. It's your job to apply your power on the course that the universe gave you, right? It's very specific. Don't power up to bend over here. Surrender so much that the course is just right there and you're on it, and you use your power, God-given talent, free will, power of choice, love to rock that course out. And that's what happened to me that weekend. And then like we pivoted fast because the trust and the confidence and the courage and the clarity and everything was there. And look, I pivoted fast in the past as well, and it has wound up hurting me. However, my wife said to me Sunday night, "Do you get it now?" And I was like, "Yeah, it still stings because we spent a lot of time and a lot of money." And she goes, "But if let's say you were making," it's my wife, just you and my wife are on the same page. If you had been making 50 grand a month, you wouldn't be a failure. It wouldn't be 150 grand a month that you're projected. However, it would be a success, and you never would have seen Irreplaceable Man, right? That's the blinders. That's the blind spots. Now, because it was not, it was the Chevy Chase thing. Not one light came on. Not one. Not like, shit, only half the house lit. Not one. And once the ego got out of it and I looked clearly, I was like, oh my God, that's it. Okay. So yes, you're right. I never would have, can't say never, because we would all know what it would have been.
It's just highly unlikely.
Like, it's highly unlikely, yeah.
You know, you're like, especially as an entrepreneur, like we measure these things a lot of the times with obviously the impact that we give to the world, but also the money.
Yeah.
Money's a metric, right? So if you're making money, you're on the right path.
It's some kind of metric.
And it's like something to look at. And so, but what I think is so impressive is how many times you had to surrender through the whole experiment. You had to surrender your ego to say, this fucking didn't work, right? You had to constantly, so like, what I love about it, again, I know it's painful at the time,
it's still
but
painful.
like you have to, this is what Elevated is about. It's like a lot of times to let your ego, you have to let something go in order to be able to get past. Because also too, it's like, it's, you know, and I hate to use the word seasons because people use this fucking word a lot, but like sometimes you got to move past what you were doing before. And again, I'm going to use them a lot because I think your story is so much tied into the surrender experiment.
It is.
But again, how many times through that book, the surrender experiment, where he said he let go of his personal expectations, right? And what he wanted. And then he just let the universe, so the universe kept telling him like, hey, you're done with this now. Time to go over here now. And sometimes we fight that, and that's why we don't get to the point where we want to get to. And again, I love the fact that you listen to that constantly, and that's allowed you to get to where you are. Now, my question is like, so you're moving the Men on Purpose podcast. You're just shifting the name.
Yep.
Nothing really needs to change there. Because I'm assuming, in terms of not that this is boring to most people, but I'm assuming you still keep your subscribers on Apple and Spotify if you do that. Then do you feel like there's going to be a shift in terms of like the listeners? What is your projection there, that you feel like people are going to stop listening? You're going to get different listeners? Like I'm kind of curious what you're kind of expecting.
You know, I was afraid of this when I bought. It's funny though. My buddy Jimmy Napolitano, he said to me 2 Fridays ago, he said, "You know what's funny, dude? This Irreplaceable Man just hits me so hard right in the chest." And I was like, "I know, man, right?" He goes, "Men on Purpose was never meant to be. It was a vehicle that you rode for way too long. It was like that guy you see running like a 1979 Dodge Aries, and you're like, bro, you're running that way too long. That's not a classic. It's not cool. There's nothing
when
about
did you start the podcast? When did you start Men on Purpose?
March of 2020.
Okay.
So I rode this old ass hoopty for way too long, knowing that I needed to make a change. And it was my identity and my pride and my ego and my fear that was keeping me there. Because without Men on Purpose, who was I? That was my purpose. That's my mission. So when I shift to Irreplaceable Man, do I lose that part of me, or is that a part of me still? And that's what I was scared of, honestly. So back when I started Men on Purpose, which remember, I bought Men on Purpose from somebody who was running it. It had 160 episodes. I mean, it was 20-minute episodes. They were going nowhere. They were not that good. And not to say that the guests weren't good. The host wasn't pulling anything good. It was like a question, answer, question, answer, question, answer. Thank you. And it was really just a springboard for this person to pitch their wares. That's really it. I took it and created something out of it that really started helping men, yet it wasn't helping me. And I think both need to be served reciprocally for everything to grow. So was I worried back then that I'd lose the audience that she had built? She didn't really build an audience. She had told me she did. She really didn't. And I didn't know what to look for, because if you Google in March of 2020 how to buy a podcast, it was 0.0 results. Google. So I was an innovator, an early adopter in podcast buying. So I, on this round, said to my team, I'm okay with whatever happens, because the people that are meant to hear this message are going to stick. And the people that aren't, they're not meant to be with us for this section of the ride anyway. And that's okay. I'm totally at peace with that. And I said to my wife this morning, she's like, for as much change as you're going through, you have this eerie calm about you. And I said, I'm in a total Jesus take the wheel moment, and I'm not that religious. Like, I am in total surrender. Like, universe, God, you just tell me where to apply my power, and I will apply it. Like, there's team members now that are coming on board. There's people coming out of the woodwork that I've talked to for years about the Men on Purpose piece, and they're like, dude, this irreplaceable man thing, I want in on that. I want a part of that. What do I need to do to be on your team? What do I need to do to hire you? Can you speak at this event? I'm like, holy shit. It's all opening. Really, it's not about what I've done. It's about what I've eliminated. And that's really important for entrepreneurs to understand. It is not about piling on. It's not about being busier. It's not about doing more. It's not about working more hours or making more money. This whole thing has come based on what I've removed and eliminated from my life, which is internal restriction and constraint, what our program does. It is ego, jealousy, greed. It's past programming, traumas. It's worry. It's anxiety. It's depression. It's identity around a dollar amount or a product or a program. My work, yes, it looks like I've built a lot, which I have, and I've been working some long hours. My team's working long hours too to get this thing pivoted. However, it's more about what I have gotten rid of than what I've acquired. And that is the recipe for success, in my opinion.
Essentially getting out of your own damn way.
Yeah, that's too simple though. That's a concept that is it's too simple, and it will never be powerful.
This is why I always say the things I talk about are simple but not easy.
Yeah.
Most of life is simple. Like, it's really that simple. Just fucking get out of the way. Universe gives you an idea, get out of the way. Just do what you got to do to execute it. Some of the ideas, like, again, you are not your thoughts. That's a very simple idea. Be impeccable with your word. Very simple. Doesn't mean that it's easy. Right? Like,
don't take things personally. Yes.
Very simple. Yeah. Not easy though. So, nothing ever is. I want to talk to you though on a more technical side. On the podcasting front, because again, you've built a very successful podcast, and you just alluded to something there that I think people get overlook, which is how do you actually be a good host? What's so funny is I've been to a lot of podcasts as a guest, and what I did was, I think anyone that wants to start a podcast I would recommend doing what I did. Before I fully launched Elevated Entrepreneur, I was doing some episodes. I think I did 30 guest appearances on podcasts. Yeah. The reason I did that is because I wanted to figure out what I liked and I didn't like. And the number one thing I couldn't stand was that question answer. And then you could tell they asked the same, hold on a second. Look at my face. They asked the same questions to everybody. And it would drive, and then they'd have this radio voice sometimes. I was like, oh, like, who does anyone, and then what blew my mind, this is the good part about it, okay? It was so trashy, but I knew they would let me know how many downloads they had beforehand. And there was this one, obviously I'm not going to say the podcast, but it was so hot garbage, Ian. And he was doing, I think it was like between 3,000 and 5,000 downloads an episode. And I go, people listen to this? Like, I was like, wait a minute. So that gave me a lot of confidence. I go, look, as long as it's not as bad, like, we should do okay. But the other part was when I came on your podcast, it was conversational. And it doesn't matter. I don't know, Ian, this is where I need the coaching, okay? It doesn't matter how many times when we get a guest, I go, this is conversational. I got 3 questions I'm going to ask you. You ask me questions, it's a conversation. And they go, I got it. I ask that question and they stop. And I go, bro, like you had no stories? Like you got, like what is happening? So how in the world can you make a successful podcast like you have? Please teach us your ways.
Well, dude,
again, I'm struggling here.
I feel your sentiments exactly with, like, all right, Raylan, next question is, like that like bullshit, fake, character driven. This is not a radio show. This is something that you want to help people with. Or you want someone to get someone to get something out of it. So you got to speak real. Here's where I'll start. Audience, write this down. Spontaneity is a conditioned reflex. And that means I practiced. That means I ask myself questions in the mirror. That means I ask my wife a shit ton of questions. That means I asked people to go on to their podcast and co-host with them, or even just sit inside of Zoom with them and see their patterns, right? There was a mentor of mine, Pat Hyben, who had a podcast called Real Estate Rockstars. I was able to get into that, which, by the way, had like 150,000 downloads a month. Big, right? I think it was like number 2 or 3 to Bigger Pockets, which Bigger Pockets like millions. And so the way I got that was putting myself out there, facing the fears and the uncomfortable, and saying to this mentor of mine who had a little tiny, every Monday, we was running a live little podcast to about 50, 60 people. And it scared the shit out of me because I thought, how does he know what to say for an hour? And like, how does he feel when the audience, there's 50 people and no one's saying a word, and he's got to fill with value or they won't come back? I want to know what that's like. So it starts with a genuine curiosity, and then it moves to practice. And again, spontaneity being a conditioned reflex means you're not spontaneous. You just look spontaneous because you're so well practiced. And so I just asked, I went out on a line and I said, hey, bro, would you mind if I took one of the episodes? I'd like to try it. And he said, sure, I think you're good enough. And so you also have to be a person that they know will never fail, is very coachable, have a great attitude. By the way, that's how I hire people. I don't give a fuck about your past or your like what you're good at. I just care that you're trustworthy and that you have a great attitude and you're coachable. If I have that, everything's good. So I positioned myself as that person. I asked for these opportunities, not caring about the no. I would have just pushed harder. I got the yes on the little one, got the yes on the next little one, took a fuck ton of criticism, a fuck ton of feedback, kept my ego in check, wrote everything down, watched for my patterns, practiced between Monday and Monday, came back better the next week, came back better the next week. And then I said to Pat, hey man, I had him on this little Monday podcast as a guest, and I interviewed him. And I'm curious about personal growth and development. Then I asked Pat the next day, 5 a.m., hey, bro, would you mind if I just like tag along and like learn about your level of podcasting? Sure, come on tomorrow. I came on the next day. It was a Tuesday morning, and I hosted 4 hours worth of podcast on my own. Pat was like, you got it, after 10 minutes. Hey, Ian, follow my lead. Oh, you got it. And hung up, jumped off the Zoom. And I was like, okay, well, here we go.
Yeah.
And so from there, I got onto a stage to speak about podcasting. And from there, I met the person that sold me Men on Purpose. And from there, right, it's just stages. So I think people want this like miraculous, like, oh, I went from, I don't know how many downloads I have, and I don't really care. I just speaking to one guy when I talk. I'm speaking to one guy that needs that shit that day. He needs me to be a stand for him, to take action and to give him something of value. And so I think people want this like zero to Joe Rogan. You're never going to get that. You'll never, ever, 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 and I'm saying never, you'll never be as big as Joe Rogan. Never, because you're not Joe Rogan. So it is a never because you're not him. You don't have his essence. You don't have his brand. You don't have anything. Now, will somebody else build a bigger podcast eventually, bigger than Joe Rogan? Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know.
Well, here's the thing that people miss too, is that Joe Rogan didn't want to be Joe Rogan. Like, he didn't set out to have the largest.
Right.
He just showed up every time and did the best he could, and he was curious. And that's the part that people miss, right? Is that curiosity. And there's something that I have to write down before every podcast. Because look, I'm like anybody else. I got a freaking ego. So there are times that I have to write on my thing, shut the fuck up, like on my notepad. When I do podcast interviews, it's shut the fuck up, be curious. And then I try to get someone to teach me something. It's like the other part of it too. But I think you got to find, your way of doing it, but also don't have the intention of having 1 billion and 1 downloads.
Yeah.
Like, I think by having that intention, that's why so many people fail. And by fail, I mean they quit, right? Like by the way, same is true for YouTube. I can't tell you how many people that they start a YouTube channel, 3 videos in, 10 videos in, and they haven't posted in 2 years.
Right. I see it all the time.
And I'm like, bro, like, your problem was when I started my channel, we're about 120 some odd videos in. When I started it, monetization wasn't even on the thing we talked about. I just said, we're going to put out a video a week. Now we're up to 3, but we're going to do a video a week, and every week we're trying to get better. And we'll figure this thing out. We'll kind of test different things, whether it's thumbnails, keywords, pacing, all this stuff, and we're learning. And then it started to grow a little bit. Still not anything crazy, but that's the intention you got to have to keep going, right? Otherwise, you're going to get your feelings hurt when you don't have 1 million and 1 views. Like, it's not about that. Like, I like how you say, like, I only talk to 1 person. Like, I'm just helping that 1 person. I guarantee you got more downloads than 1.
Yeah, I do. I just, look, there's not, like I was telling my wife this morning, our first episode of the Irreplaceable Man podcast is out today, 20th of February, right? Is that what today is? Yeah.
Yeah.
And everything shifted today. So you want to hear me getting real raw with my wife on the mic and us talking about our marriage and our challenges and the stuff we've been through and the way that we have become irreplaceable in each other's lives? That's today's episode, and it'll be like twice a month. And my wife was saying this morning, I don't want to hear my own voice. I don't like that. It sucks. And I said, what's interesting is the first episode I did, I just became at peace. And this is good advice for someone who's looking to start. Just know for a fact that your first episode is going to suck shit. And then in a year from now, you're going to listen to your first episode and you're going to be like, who would ever listen to this?
Oh my God.
And then just know that your 100th episode is going to suck shit compared to your 200th. And your 200 is going to suck shit compared to your 300. Because if you as a man, and we're just speaking to men right now, if you as a man are not growing and evolving who you are, your business isn't growing, which means your podcast, your content, none of that's growing. So like the question you asked me earlier about, is it all about your wife and are you like kind of stuck? Is that it? Like you're under the thumb of this person to change? And the answer is no. All these things we're talking about has to change if you change. If you don't change, they won't change. And so if you're expecting different results by putting in the same inputs into the formula, you're an idiot. You're lying to yourself. Definition of insanity, whatever you want to call, and email me very quickly. You're an idiot. And I will battle you all day, and I'll open a mic and I'll battle you all day long. Not you, the audience. And so like you have to know you're only so good. And it's hard sometimes. And I talk to a lot of guys who are very high level. I coach athletes, I coach musicians, I coach actors and high level business guys. It's really hard when you have success in one part of your life to be failing so miserably in another one, like your marriage. But you're like making millions or like you're on stage and playing in front of 50,000 people, and then you come home and your wife's like, you gonna take the trash out? And you're like, isn't there somebody for that? And she goes, no, that's not what we do here. I heard Dave Grohl speak about that on the Howard Stern show. Same thing. Like I just played for 3 weeks, made $25 million, and I'm the guy, right? And then all of a sudden I come home, my wife's like, hey, can you start dinner and take the trash out? And he goes, wow, what a juxtaposition. So these high level guys or, starting a podcast or a YouTube channel, you have to understand that just because you have an expertise in one thing and you got a PhD in that, doesn't mean that you can't step into a freshman classroom and learn like the basics. And you got to be okay with that. You got to check your ego and know, hey, my first podcast is going to suck. I know it. I think that if I can get through it, that my second one's going to be a little bit better, because you're going to own your craft. If you don't own your craft, you're an amateur for life, no matter how many downloads you have. And when you can become a professional and put a system and a structure around your podcast or your business or your marriage, and you can track it. That's why I built the curriculum I did, to track everything. When you can start tracking it and making course corrections and changes that either put you toward or away from the result or the goal that you have, you're a pro, and you're going to apply that habit into every area of your life, and you're going to pro every area. And then when you get stuff like I ran into or you ran into, where you have a wall you hit with something you thought was going to be big. Now, don't get me wrong, Mental Purpose is very successful, just not at what my vision was. And when it hit a wall, the pro in me said, metrics, not working. What needs to happen? Pivot. What do we pivot to? Here's the structure. Here's the system. Here's the leverage. Go. So spontaneity is a conditioned reflex. I looked like, holy fuck, man, you pivoted in 3 weeks and you're already wearing the shirt. Yeah. But behind that are a lot of years of building systems and habits for structure and organization and leverage that makes it look very clean and easy.
Yeah. And again, the universe leveraging kind of like, hey, here's some help, right? This is how you know you're in the right direction. I messed up all the shirts, right? Like, right. And by the way, too, I can't even, you're so right about your first, I went back because yesterday my creative director and I spent 4 hours. This is, again, behind the scenes of YouTube channels people don't know. We spent 4 hours yesterday going back to old videos, changing thumbnails, titles, keywords, that kind of stuff, right? And a couple of them were when I first started. And I watched that video, and Ian, I want to die. I was like, this is garbage. I was like, people are still, this is the beautiful thing about YouTube, is obviously it still gets views. And I'm like, people are watching this? Like, I wanted to fucking delete it. I was like, this is such garbage. And then, by the way, I'm like, and my job right now is to try to see if I can get more people to see this. Like, I'm going to delete it. But it's so, the other part of it too, though, is I watched it, and this is where, like, Dan Sullivan's gap in the game comes from. And I was like, it was such a good reminder. Oh no, I've come a long way. Like the way that I even prepare for the videos, the way that I'm delivering, I'm like, everything is better comparatively, but it was painful as shit to do that. And also, this speaks to the importance of also listening to your stuff. Yeah. I'll tell you something that's interesting. I had a podcast episode recently with Evan Carmichael. It was the first podcast. I'm ashamed to even admit it right now, but like, it was the first podcast I ever listened to of my own.
Of yours, yeah.
And I did it because he was dropping. I was like, I got to go back, and because as you know, when you're hosting, like, it's hard to take the notes and, for your own. So I went back to watch it again so I could take the notes, and there were so many more lessons that I learned about how to do things better. And so now I'm going to make myself listen to my podcasts.
Yeah.
And it should be interesting. Like, I think we forget sometimes that we're content creators. Like, I went the opposite direction. I was a business guy that did content. Now I'm flipping it around a little bit, and I think the best people you can learn from when it comes to content is being like comedians, right?
Yeah,
because comedians, they're constantly pushing out content. So all right, you're a busy man. What do you want to leave people with before we jump out of here? And obviously send people to go listen to your new episode, because I'm going to go listen to it today as well.
Yeah, it's episode 302. So the whole, I didn't start a new podcast. I just changed the branding name and the concept, like, changed everything about it, honestly.
Yeah.
Irreplacableman.com is where you can find everything. And we've got a really amazing mastermind called the Irreplaceable Man Mastermind. That is 12 weeks, live group coaching, 17 videos, 17 exercises, helping you dial in your mission, your purpose for your life, the mission and purpose of your marriage, because most people don't understand why they're married. They think it's for, like, splitting bills, taking care of kids, companionship. It's not that. We want to help you figure out why your marriage is still intact, or just be partners and co-parent and move on to somebody that you actually have fun with. That's the thing. And then the rest of the time we spend helping the man become that irreplaceable man. The habits and skills and mindset and environment changes and belief changes and language changes we go through in depth. And what you emerge as is the irreplaceable man in all the areas of your life. again, marketing wise, it's to your marriage, to your wife. So she doesn't want to leave. Yet when you become the irreplaceable version of you, you will affect every single thing that you touch, anything you get into. It's just that. So irreplacableman.com, and you can hit me up on Instagram. I don't know what my guys have changed my name to at this point.
No, I'll put it all in the description.
Yeah,
so you don't
I think it's I am Ian Lobos or Ian.Lobos. I don't know. It's just, you'll see it on there.
Yeah. And again, if you're listening to this and you're even curious about it, look, you could be in one or two places, I think. And this is why the irreplaceable man makes sense. Either A, you're the high achiever that's crushing it at work, crushing in your business, and you're neglecting performance on the other side, or and this is maybe more likely for you, is that you are the best husband in the world. You're an amazing father. Everything's about them, but your fucking business is trash.
Yep.
You go to work every day wanting to die. You're not pushing the envelope there, so you're miserable. But you come home and you're the best father and husband in the world. Guess what? You're still incomplete.
You're still replaceable. Yeah, you're still replaceable somewhere.
I think. Yeah, and I'll be really curious. I want to talk again in a year. Okay. And I want to know from you, and I want you to track this a little bit because I think it'd be interesting. How many of those men are in that camp versus the other? I'll be really curious to know, out of the people that come to you, which are they the high achiever in business that's suffering at home, or are they the high achiever at home that's suffering in business? I'm curious. I'll be really curious to know who.
I'm writing that down.
Yeah.
Suffering
because also too.
Home.
Because here's your A/B test, right? Is putting out, like, eventually when you do ads and so on, and then even YouTube videos, the thumbnails, like A/B test, having it be both ways, and then see which one pulls more. Because again, I'm gonna put my bet on this, and I want to see if I'm wrong. I think there's more people out there that are crushing it at home, but are really suffering in the workplace.
Yeah.
And they feel incomplete.
Yeah,
now,
and look,
eventually it erodes the home too, right?
Yeah, and it's a good point, because your wife doesn't just want to leave the guy that isn't great at home. She actually might want to leave the guy more. She has less options. If you think about it, she's got less options with the guy that's crushing it at home and not in the workplace or professionally. It's that juxtaposition between like the imbalance between personal, professional, professional, or personal. Yeah. When you're crushing it, as a man in your business or with finances, she's actually got options to escape and, fill the void. When you're not bringing home the bacon and she's out having to do the masculine role, not the man's role, the masculine energy role. She's like, yeah, but he's a good dad. Yeah, but the motherfucker doesn't provide. And like, I think that's actually more dangerous. So you just opened my eyes to something that I'm going to talk to my team about today, that I'm going to definitely do that split test and get back to you.
Yeah. I don't know the answer to it. I'd just be curious to know. Anyway, Ian, as always, dude, super enlightening. I appreciate you coming on, man. Thank you all for listening. And as always, stay motivated, stay elevated. Thank you for listening to The Elevated Entrepreneur. If you want to check out more about the guest, look at the description below. And as always, if you're a beginner coach or even someone that's seasoned and you're looking to join a community of like-minded individuals, learn about branding, lead generation, sales, you name it, think about applying to the Elevated Coaches Academy. You can learn more about that in the description below. I look forward to having you in the next episode. We'll talk to you soon. Stay motivated, stay elevated.